Bonjour, merci, et miigwech. I'm Joy Lachica, and it's just great to be here with you, Taylor, at Nogo Williams Treaty Territory, traditional territory of the Mississauga. I am the federal candidate for Peterborough Kawartha, and I was nominated back April 28th, and a resident of Peterborough as of September. That's when we closed on our house. And I have just thoroughly enjoyed not being in a pandemic. Obviously, I've been working remotely the whole time. But I've been so enjoying taking the time during the closure and everything, just reading, speaking on the phone with people who have lived here for generations, talking to people who know a lot about the city in particular. I couldn't run in 2019. I was president of the Elementary Teachers of Toronto at that time. And I had my work in front of me to fight against Ford's cuts to education. You know, we know that the funding formula in Ontario since the Harris years has not been fixed. And we've needed a new funding formula. So I passionately, because I've been a teacher for more than 25 years, knew that that's what I was called to at that time. And also on a provincial level, going all around the province as an ETFO liaison to talk to members, to talk to families and communities, to education workers, to find out what's happening on the ground. So I could go back to our tables of governance to come up with the very best plan to strategize in the face of cuts that continue to unfold in public education. Because those of us who listen to science and believe our medical officers of health and public health officers, we know that our children who are 12 and under, the ones who are unvaccinated, are the ones that are most vulnerable. And those who haven't yet had the opportunity to be vaccinated. And we know that in some corners, not everybody has had easy access. So this isn't about mandatory vaccination. This is about respecting the rights for everyone to be safe, to be healthy, to be well. And we hear that being fully vaccinated is the best way to protect ourselves, our families, our children who are under 11 years old as they return to in-person learning. And we need to stop thinking about jurisdiction in the way that we have in the past. You know, a lot of things have been, quote unquote, provincial jurisdiction. And we know that there are transfer payments that go to provinces. And we know that there has been extra funding go to provinces because of COVID-19. And that's happened for education. The problem with the current Prime Minister is that he never created a mechanism of accountability for the money that was extra money that was transferred to Ontario. And I can speak to Ontario because that's where I'm from. But, you know, if you're going to give money to an unfriendly government to education, you need to say, we're going to give you that money when you sign on the dotted line to tell us where specifically this money is going to go. So there's a real disconnect on a federal level with what should be happening on a provincial level. And across, I speak for Ontario because I've been part of the education governance body. And I know every little bit of what's happened. And I've been fighting throughout this pandemic remotely since March when the schools closed in Toronto. I've been working remotely to support my members who are suffering from long COVID, their whole families, some of them, crying and saying, I don't know what to do because I don't know how long this is going to last. And I have 3 doctors and I don't know how I'm going to be able to support my family. And I need to go back to work because my sick days are exhausted. This is affecting women. This is affecting essential workers, the people who have kept us going in this pandemic. This Liberal government hasn't seen fit to provide paid sick days. Only now, as the bell sounds for an election, are we hearing this language.
You know, what would you like to see Canada be doing in its part to deal with climate change?
Yes, so in my role as an ETFO executive member, I've had the privilege of being a delegate to the United Nations. The UNCSW, the United Nations Committee for the status of women. It's a global annual event, and it's based on the United Nations Sustainability Goals. And we know that some countries in Europe are light years ahead of us in terms of meeting the Paris targets and new targets for 2030. So during the 6 years of this Liberal government, we have been behind other countries. And it's for that reason that we have not achieved goals, and we're much farther behind the rest of the world that have been vigilant since Paris. So that's why we see sustainable energy programs happening in places like Germany. We're seeing wind, solar, power, water, all of those systems in place and integrated into the lives and communities of the people in those countries because they've made it a priority. So in Canada, we've heard Justin Trudeau talk about a just transition to a green economy. But unfortunately, he's green-lighted pipelines, and he hasn't seen it as an urgent situation. And in many cases, we respect the fact that our economy has been built on fossil fuels, and a lot of us, do not have electric cars yet because we don't have the infrastructure to be able to get from A to B and know that we can charge up, etc. So but that's where a federal government takes the leadership to create the infrastructure to make that happen. And that's what they've done in Germany and the Netherlands. And it's heart-wrenching because in our home, our family is in British Columbia, and we're saying, yeah, there's an election happening and we have a small house, but please come, because we're worried that Tilly, my daughter, our daughter, that her little cousins are vulnerable because of the air quality in the Lower Mainland. Like this is so close to home, and I'm sure everybody out there, has a friend or a family member in British Columbia that they're or the Okanagan in the interior, or in Thunder Bay.
So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what an NDP government would do to create housing that accommodates both the people that are in the highest end of the spectrum, who have disposable income and they want to be buying a home in Peterborough, versus those who are on a fixed income or have no income.
We really care about a universal basic income, so there, for those whatever age, young and old, who have been suffering greatly due to poverty prior to pandemic and now. Housing prices have gone up, but we need to have the conversations, and we need to share what we have with those around us, and find ways to integrate our lives so that we're taking care of one another. And I know that the NDP cares about that. There have been housing projects that were initiated 2-3 years ago that are still not completed. There are Y lofts happening over there, but I'm not hearing about any new affordable housing for seniors, for youth, for university students that are at Trent. If the current government had its finger on the pulse and its ear to the track, those things would have been initiated during the pandemic. Jagmeet is the person, and I'm so excited to be part of Team Jagmeet as a candidate in Peterborough 4th. Thank you so much, Taylor.